Hey everybody, I've gotten a couple of questions about your project that's due next Monday, the 14th. So I just wanted to make a quick video. This should not be, you definitely should have started it already and started doing the Mathematica part of this. But I also wanted to show you that I don't want it to be this big elaborate document. It should be a brief technical document. And when we talk about brief technical document, we're like just bringing the facts together, short sentences here and there describing what we want to do. This is in Blackboard. It's been in Blackboard for a couple of weeks now. It's in the Mathematica folder, I think, for every week in the last couple of weeks. The Dropbox is in next week's folder. It's due on Monday the 14th, so it will open up when that folder opens up for week 8 in Blackboard. I just want to go back to this beginning part. This, by the way, was a set of standards that 27 science, technology, engineering, and math faculty came together several years ago, and we came together and came up with this checklist about how we do writing in STEM, or writing with technical type documents, or engineering, science, math, and technology type documents. This is different than an English paper that you would write, where there's a lot of prose. I want you to read, I'm not going to read this to you, but please read it all through this so you understand what I'm looking for here. And I also want to point out that I'm asking for this particular document, I'm asking for a technical document where you should not be using personal pronouns, which includes the pronoun it. If you look, this is what I want it to be a technical document. Write it as if you were writing it to a peer, a college peer. You're going to submit to me a soft copy, which means an electronic notebook. I don't want a PDF. I don't want a paper copy. I want you to submit the actual Mathematica notebook, just as you've done with your other Mathematica notebooks. You can use those notebooks, by the way. You can copy and paste code from those notebooks as you need to use them into this project for this function. And this just goes through the checklist of what I'm expecting for the project. And then this is kind of your rubric of the 50 points as you're earning it. Again, I'm not going to read this to you, so please read this document carefully, especially the black box and the page before, talking about what a technical document is. You should not be saying things when you get into your explanations. You should not be saying, we see by, or I can see by. No, 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 we don't use pronouns. We're not doing an instructional manual. We're doing a technical document, just as if you were to present at a conference or in front of college peers. You don't use personal pronouns for technical documents. You would show something in Mathematica, and then you would say the graphs, or you would say the tables demonstrate. So you don't need to use I or we or it. You're going to try to avoid those words as you go through. You're going to talk about the function. You're going to talk about the limit of a function. You're going to talk about the domain of a function, and so forth. And this is how you're earning your points as you go through. You can see this is the function you guys are working on. You're using the STEM standards, which is that page I just showed you above. Make sure you read that before you start this project. You're going to give a brief introduction and a brief conclusion. Don't forget to do that. That's going to bring 4 points of your project there for just those two things. You're going to show a clear graph over the domain that is given here. You are going to then mathematically describe the domain. Again, I don't want you to use Mathematica syntax here. I want you to be a mathematician and show me your mathematical knowledge that you have up until this point in your mathematical career. So I want you to mathematically describe the domain of this function. What values are in the domain? What values are not in the domain? Why do you know that from the function and from what Mathematica shows you? And hopefully you can do all of this using Mathematica and using your knowledge of a rational function, and where you want to see how the domain is limited. Then I want you to use Mathematica to find the x and y intercepts. Remember how, and again, I want you to mathematically explain. Come on, you're in calculus now. You should be able to mathematically explain to me, not using Mathematica syntax, but using Mathematica to find those intercepts, and then tell me, how do we find intercepts? For instance, just a quick, right? How do you know? What do you know about the input and the output when we're finding the intercepts, right? What do you know about the input of the y-intercept? What do you know about the output of the x-intercepts? And then mathematically explain that knowledge to me, just in a couple of sentences. You're going to create two tables following here, this data here, in looking at as we approach 7 from both sides, and then a second set of tables. So you're going to have 4 tables altogether, approaching -6 from both sides. And you're going to explain carefully what that evidence, you're using the evidence from the tables to then tell me, does the limit exist? Explain why or why not. Does the function exist? Explain why or why not, and go through those values. Then you're going to create 2 more tables for end behavior, looking at the end behavior of the function. Again, all of those table notations can be found in your manual and from what you did for me already. And then lastly, you're going to clearly explain what those tables are telling you, using the tables as evidence to explain your conclusions. And then you're going to show a new plotting of your graph, inserting all these things that you found in these in A through I above, pointing them out with arrows, explaining in there as you would to explain this. And then lastly, you're going to put this in the Dropbox by the due date. Now, I'm going to go to a project from a previous semester in just a second. So this is a project from a previous semester. The student starts with a brief introduction and then gets into, and again, that introduction just has to be a sentence or two, just saying, what are you going to do? We're going to go through and do an analysis of this rational function. So just a couple of sentences or so. It doesn't have to be elaborate. You're going to define the function. You're going to find the intercepts. You're going to go through all the different things, right, that they asked you. You're going to go through that, all of this here. And at the very end, I want to show you, at the very end, I want you to, after you're done doing the entire project, I would like you to take all the messy stuff that was creating the tables and so forth, and put them at the very end of the document. I want you to create a page break to do that. And I'm going to show you that in just a second. So for instance, you're going to start your notebook. You're going to put your Mathematica project. You'll put your name here, right? Then you're going to do introduction. And then you're going to type a brief introduction. Then you're going to type graph of the function. And then in here, you're going to do the Mathematica to plot that function, and the function will be there, and so forth. Now, you're going to do all the coding in here, but at the very end, you're going to move that coding to the end of your document. So what you're going to do is you'll have coding, but at the very end, so for instance, I'm just going to put a silly function here. I'm just going to put f of x equals colon equals x. I'm just going to put a function like that, and whatever the function happens to be. Put it down here so it's actually in code. Shift enter, right? So here's your function. You might have lots of other code in here as you're making all of these things for each section. At the very end of all your Mathematica, after all the Mathematica is done and all your thing is there, the only thing you're going to present is those things you want to present. Things like all those lines of making the tables, all those extra code that's going to make your document look messy, you put at the end of your document. And you do that by simply doing insert, and then you do like a page break. And you can see the page break here. And then down here, what you're going to do is you're going to put in the code used for this project. That is going to make the project messy. now all those coding and tables and stuff. And all you're going to do is up here in the beginning part of your project, where you had all those lines, you know, for column heads and so forth, that you made the tables with. You only want the tables. You don't necessarily want the code that formed the tables. You're just going to go up here like this, up to the code, and then Control C to copy it, and then go down here and Control V to paste it. And then you just go up here and you're going to just delete it. You're going to delete this code. So up here, the project doesn't look so messy with all the code. And at the very end of the project, you'll have the code that makes the document look a little bit messy. Let me show you again back to the project from a past semester. Again, this is a project from a previous semester, right? You can see as you go through. And notice everything was written nicely, but at the very end is where the code is, and all the messy code goes at the very end. All right? So hopefully this will help you with what I'm expecting for this project. If you have any more questions, I've had a few email questions. That's why I made this video. Simply just email me or come to office hours. Again, here's your project. Good luck.